What is up, guys? Welcome back to yet another trek through the Mushoku Tensei Jobless Reincarnation, the novel series. Happy Mushoku Mondays. I nearly forgot to say it. We are on volume 10 of the Mushoku Tensei Jobless Reincarnation. This is 10, right? Yes, this is 10. We're on 10 of the novel series, and my gosh, I am so happy to really start getting past volume 9 and into 10. I will admit, I have been blowing through this volume pretty quickly. I've already gotten past chapter 6, which is pretty much halfway through the entire novel. Honestly, not a lot to note here. There's a lot of kind of just fun stuff that's happening, which is fun, and I did really enjoy reading them, but it's not anything to really dive into. So I'm having a feeling that we're probably gonna kind of get through this volume pretty darn quick. It's honestly turning out to probably be one of the weakest volumes. It's not saying much because, yes, amongst all the volumes that are doing amazing things, to say it's the least is not really saying much. It's like saying it's a 8 out of 10 rather than a 10 out of 10. But yes, as per usual, thank you guys so much for dropping by for the premieres, all those that check out the video, all those that share it out, all that kind of stuff. The first time doing it in this setup, so I hope you guys enjoy the new setup for those that don't watch my other content. Additionally, I want to extend a thank you to all of those that are in the chat right now and that are watching this that are super Sylphie fans, because I know over my last 2 Mushoku Mondays, I created quite a storm. And to be honest, it was partly because I recorded both of them before I even aired one of them. So yeah, none of the feedback of people saying shut up about Sylphie didn't really go in there, which is fine. I understand that sometimes I'm not going to view things the same way as other people. I kind of am pretty literal about how I read this stuff, and so unless it's completely spelled out in some ways, I don't really fall the same way that a lot of people do, and I think that's where a lot of issues that people had with my coverage of the later parts of Volume 9. That's perfectly fine. I am happy for those that remain with Mushoku Mondays because that tells me those people are tolerant of people seeing things differently than they do, because I'm probably going to see things differently than most people, and I think that's probably what Refugian wanted. Refugian probably put a lot of things in there to be speculated on, which is a fun thing. It's fun to speculate. It's fun to see other people's vantage points. If I just stated everything that you've seen, it's going to be a boring series. If I say stupid things, it makes it more entertaining. And yes, when I am saying that I see things differently than you do, and it's wrong in your opinion, that's fun, isn't it? But anyways, with all that said, I appreciate everybody that sticks with the Mushoku Mondays and all that support the channel, those that view it, those that hit the like button. If you haven't already, hit the like button. Those that leave comments when the comment section's opened, everybody that drops by for the premieres, all that stuff means so much to me. And yes, special thanks to those that support the channel monetarily through our tips link, our super thanks, Patreon, and yes, those that are members of the channel. But with all that said, let's dive into Volume 10. We'll see if I can possibly get through the 6 chapters, because I think that's where the fun is at. Chapter 6 was a lot of fun, but we'll see. Let's dive into it, starting with Chapter 1, Backing. Sylphie gave Rudius something very precious, her first time. So now he would pledge his fidelity to her. He would do as she wished him to do. Which, yes, kind of got into my whole thought process there of, no matter what Sylphie says, I know there's a lot of contingencies about Sylphie forcing Rudius to, join Ariel's fight, which I joked about a lot. But honestly, no matter how you view it, if Sylphie stays with Ariel, no matter what, Rudius is going to help her. Not that I don't understand Sylphie's vantage point. She's stuck between 2 different things here. She's in a really tight situation. However, Sylphie never voiced her feelings to Rudius. He knew she wanted to stay with him, but she wouldn't say it explicitly. He figured it had something to do with the fact that she is Ariel's bodyguard. So, he figured he'd probably have to ask Ariel. While in thought, he cut the bedsheet of its stain and placed it into a box that he made with earth magic. Then placed it inside of his altar. Giving a prayer, he finally felt human again. Yes, the stain from Sylphie, he cut it out of the bed sheets and put it in his altar. He's just collecting very... Now, it's funny because I honestly, for a while there, I thought he was going to actually put Eris's pantsuit in the altar too. But again, it's only things that he really does fine are like massive pinnacles in his point, which, sorry, Eris fans... That wasn't a massive point in his life. That was a tragic point in his life. And it was something that he was holding on to. I think if Ed stayed with him, he'd probably keep it as an artifact. But yes, anything that's like these big pinnacle points of his life that are like unsettling, he puts into this box. Not that Roxy's pantsuit is unsettling. Let's make that perfectly clear. It's just unsettling to other people that understand how great Roxy is. After this, he was walking on air. He headed towards his homeroom class. Sylphie was walking with him, slightly bow-legged. I like that he has to point that out. Sylphie peeked in the classroom as he entered it. He was quickly greeted by Zenoba and Julie. It suddenly stuck out to Rudius that Julie had become pretty cute. Yes, she was 7, a child, but already cute with her orange hair curled outward. He patted her on the head, which made her look surprised, but then she quickly lowered her gaze and trembled. So unfortunately, she was still afraid of him. Yes, quickly Zenoba picked up on something. Rudius was different. Honestly, Rudius wanted to tell Zenoba what happened, but because he's sort of been always concerned about what's been happening with Rudius, and so Rudius has sort of been keeping him filled in on his whole ED thing. However, he couldn't say anything, because if he did mention that he got his ED cured, people would want to know who. And if people asked who, it would eventually lead to possibly revealing Sylphie's identity. As Linnea and Persena took their seats, putting their legs up on the table and everything, Rudius found himself lost in thought about their figure. How he touched them before, how he caught a peek in their promised lands when he was taking off their pantsu. And yes, suddenly, they looked cuter. Everything is suddenly looking more attractive to Rudius. Nya? They covered their noses as he approached. They must have caught the scent of his arousal, so even they are picking up on the fact that he is now aroused. What should we do? Looks like the boss can't control himself anymore. I thought he wasn't working down there, Nya. It must be my overwhelming charm. I'm such a sinful girl. Then you be his prey, Persena, Nya. Leave our village to me, Nya. No. Maybe it's actually you that he's after, Linnea. But if you become boss's woman, then you could take control of the entire world, Nya. You could have a daily meat buffet, Nya. I guess I have no choice then. I have to do it to protect you. Persena being suddenly loyal to helping Linnea. Like, every time there's this kind of exchange happening, Persena always kind of just throws Linnea under the bus, and Linnea always kind of just falls for it. But this is the one time when you mention the idea that he could take control of the world, and he would have buffets every day, suddenly she's like, it can't be helped. I guess I'm gonna have to take a bullet for you. Persena approached Rudius, batting her eyes and pushing her chest up. I want you to love me. Ow! Suddenly Rudius chopped her on the head. Just take a seat. I'm not gonna touch either one of you. He had control over himself. Honestly, that's a big deal for Rudius. Let's all take a moment to acknowledge the fact that he's literally holding himself for Sylphie right now. He's devoted to her. At this point, Cliff also pointed out Rudius and his boost of confidence. The man god did tell Rudius that if he went here, he would regain his confidence as a man. But Rudius didn't really feel like he was more confident than before. So he finally decided, I'll be clear with the crowd. He told everybody that he was cured. But he told them that he couldn't get into the details. Everyone was happy and gave O's. Linnea and Persena gave each other glances. Cliff came over and patted him on the shoulder. I love Cliff. He's like genuine, like he's actually happy for his friend. Again, he did so much for Cliff. They all lined up around him applauding. It was almost like a final episode of a TV anime. Maybe it was the order in which they were going to die. At this point, I'm like, the obvious thought that popped in my head was Evangelion, but I'm like, I don't remember Evangelion showing the characters applauding in the order they died. I think it's completely, like, almost backwards. But anyways, Linnea and Persena gave off comments about the girls in the scroll getting pregnant now. But he was a gentleman, and he wouldn't be putting his hands on anybody but Sylphie. Good man. Good man. Despite how perverted he is, and he's constantly thinking about inappropriate things about everybody, at least when it came to him actually physically doing it, he's holding himself back. Despite everybody's criticism of Rudius when the anime first started. After homeroom, Rudius decided that he would sign up for supplementary classes. Obviously, he's missed a lot of school. At the staff room, Genius also asked him if something happened. Again, noting something changed. After kind of clarifying things, Genius obviously felt like Rudius was going to be leaving the academy, which is technically true. Rudius came here to cure his impotence. He could leave right now and go to the Bigger continent and reunite with his family, but a lot had happened. Now here's a key thing here. A lot has happened. Reuniting with Zenoba, adopting Julie, befriending Linnea and Persena, bonding with Cliff. Then there was Nanahoshi. He wondered if meeting Nanahoshi was possibly the man god's real intentions. So he's going on my mindset now. Because that's literally what I was talking about in the last 2 Mushoku Mondays, about how I wonder if that's actually what he was after. Befriending Nanahoshi. And then yes, Sylphie was just the icing on the cake. So much has happened to him once he arrived here. A lot of really good things. It's kind of that whole aspect that everything that we've seen from Volume 1, all the way through the volumes, to the Demon Continent, all the way back over, all these people that he's met, all these bonds that he formed and everything. And then coming to the academy, everything sort of started fixing for him. He's meeting a lot of people, and he's being reunited with people. So much has happened to him, and a lot of very positive things. Honestly, with everything that tragically happened throughout his journey, It's all seemingly coming to a head at the academy. Everything's sort of getting better for him, which is literally making me afraid. Something I thought about the entire time reading this novel, all the way up to chapter 6, is Rudius is building a concrete place. And I'm just waiting for that chapter to pop up, turning point. There's too many good things happening that I'm waiting for the turning point chapter to pop up on my screen and go, there it is. Rudius, you got too comfortable. Everything's falling apart now. But no, in the end, Sylphie was what mattered the most to Rudius. As long as she was here, Rudius would stay. Yes, she was guarding Princess Ariel, who would stay until graduation, but he didn't know what she planned after that. If they returned to Aspera Kingdom, would it be right to accompany them? But before he did that, he would have to touch base with Paul. He had been sending letters periodically, but there was no way of knowing if they'd actually got to him. For now, he would wait to receive word from Paul. This is scaring me. This part is scaring me. Honestly, with the whole thing with Ellen Elise telling Rudius to go to the academy, saying it's okay, Paul is going down there, Roxy's with him, so I know that's going to actually work out because Roxy's with him. Because he doesn't trust Paul. And again, from our perspective, we know that there's some sort of labyrinth that she's at. And their assumption is that, oh, she's in a labyrinth and she's just dungeon diving. Maybe she got sick of Paul. But I don't feel that's the case. And so the fact that they've finally acknowledged this point, that he has been sending letters to Paul, he doesn't even know if it's gotten to them, which acknowledges that he has not got responses. This is making me afraid that something really bad's happening. And although Rudius is getting comfortable and he's talking about staying there, he's acknowledging now that he hasn't received word, which is normal. There's no reason that he would assume that it gets to Paul. He doesn't know if Paul's even at the location he's sending it to, which I would assume is Millis. He might be sending it to Bagrit. I don't know. Or he might be just, sending it to the Adventure Guilds and it would eventually get to him. Don't know. And that's the scary part. He doesn't know what exactly is happening. And so it just makes me wait. I'm waiting for that moment. Finally, he gets a letter. And it says, Rudius, get down here. Again, it's in the mix of happiness that's happening. Rudius, I don't feel is ever going to be happy for an extended period of time. Something is going to happen. It's the turning points. They make you assume it. Anyways, he assured Genius that he would be staying for the time being, even if it wasn't to graduation. Later on, he goes to Nanahoshi. Nanahoshi seemed to be the only person that did not notice that Rudius had changed. They didn't really converse much anyhow. Even when they did, there was an obvious generation gap. Of course, she was 17 when she transported, Rudius was 34, and with the additional 10 years after appearing here, their age difference was massive. In his conversation, he found out that she didn't even know who Sailor Moon was. I'm like, dang, girl. I mean, we had Sailor Moon Crystal. How could you not know what that is? Again, this is way a long time ago. I guess technically this chapter probably could have been wrote before Sailor Moon Crystal came out. But she did know of Dragon Ball. At least she's got that, because that thing's just never gonna die. Still, she was an avid manga reader and light novel reader. At some point, Rudius slipped out. Miss Nanahoshi, what would you want from a person if you were to date them? Her hand slipped badly. She crumpled up the paper that she was working on and tossed it. What's this all of a sudden? Talking about love? Something like that. In case I haven't made this clear, I want to get home as soon as possible. Could you take this seriously? You're always chatting. We'd get more done if you would just shut up and move your hands instead of your mouth. Despite her words, Rudius knew that she didn't hate idle banter. They even chatted here and there. Does that mean you're one of those people? Someone with no romantic experiences? Even I've been in love before, although we fought and that was the end of it. This is a sad part, because he acknowledged at this point it was probably one of the men that she was arguing with before they were transferred. And yes, they could have been transported too, but he had heard no rumors of it. If they did get transferred, they may be dead. At this point, he chose not to say anything, knowing that Nanahoshi probably made the same calculations. She was lucky. She was massively lucky, and there's nothing to say that they were lucky too. At this point, Nanahoshi's lips hardened into a frown as she mumbled, "It's enough that if a person you like just stays by your side." Rudius realized she was probably having a really hard time with this. He really shouldn't have asked. That's a big oof, Rudius. That's a massive big oof. And it's one of those things like you think, read the room, Rudius, but that's one of those things where you could probably say that and not even realize you're sort of walking right into that. Again, assuming that one of those guys was the one that she was in love with, and they may have been transferred here, they may be dead. And even if they're not dead, and even if they weren't transferred, she can't see them. She hasn't been able to see them for, assumingly, in the other world, 10 years. There's nothing to say that if once she goes back, 10 years hadn't passed. Time might be different, but it might not. At lunch, Rudius headed to the student council room. If he was going to be serious about Sylphie, he had to let Luke and the princess know. When he arrived, he announced himself. After a panic clamor of footsteps, he was told to enter by Luke's flustered command. I just knock on, hey, it's Rudius Grey Rat. I'm here to meet Ariel. And he just, come in. They were trying to make themselves presentable, obvious. And we obviously find out later that she has breadcrumbs on her face and that they were obviously having lunch. Despite having that aura and that presentation of this dignified woman, in the background, she's a goofball, and yes, she's very promiscuous. When he came in, Ariel sat in an expensive chair with beautiful blonde hair braided behind her. She was obviously gorgeous, but average body. Sylphie stood beside her with a Fitz appearance. Cold and cool. The crybaby from home was no longer here. Instead, the image of Fitz. It's a pleasure to make your acquaintance. My name is Rudius Grey Rat. He bowed on one knee. This isn't the royal palace. We are both just students here. Please raise your head. While he raised his head, he stayed on one knee. He didn't want to risk embarrassing Sylphie. No, you're doing the wrong thing, Rudius. This is literally what Sylphie didn't want. But of course, she didn't tell him that. But this is literally what Sylphie didn't want. I love that. Though it was technically in the context of not wanting Ariel to essentially control him and make him bow. He's choosing it himself, I guess. So what brings someone as widely renowned throughout the school as you, Master Rudius? He could feel a tingling in his brain as he listened to her voice. He wondered if she was possibly a blessed child with a voice that can mesmerize. I kind of wonder that. And it's funny because it just came off of me watching Magical Revolution, this idea of somebody with this core that made them technically a vampire, and their words and their aura would make people sympathize with them. And so it kind of makes me kind of parallel that as well, this idea that, you know, she's a blessed child and that she has this magic about her that she doesn't even know, she possibly might not even know about, that just controls people. And the assumption is that she's just so beautiful and she has such a great voice and she's so good with her words that it enchants people. It might just be a curse. Though at that point, why would her words not affect, like, the prince? Unless she just never converses with him. Though again, at the same time, it could be one of those aspects where it's just kind of a building process. It's not necessarily that she says sit and somebody sits. At this point, Rudius made it clear to Ariel that he came to extend his aid if she asked. He knew that she assisted Sylphie in curing his illness. And while yes, he wanted to avoid political conflict, with somebody he cared about involved, that changed everything. He couldn't stand by while she was in danger. And now again, this gets back to my point, just for those that are new here that don't know, I've been very nasty about Sylphie and the fact that she has essentially gotten Rudius involved in a war. My whole point there is more the idea that because she's stuck between two people, Ariel, who she wants to help, that's her friend, that technically saved her life, and Rudius, the one that she loves, that technically saved her life, she's stuck between these two things. And there's an aspect there about choosing which one to follow. Instead, Sylphie has essentially gotten both, which is good for her. You know, she's able to stay with Rudius. Rudius is fine with helping her with Ariel. But at the same time, there's a side of me that's like, me personally, I would have want to say, I'm sorry, Ariel. You said I could leave. I'm going to leave. I don't want my loved one, somebody that I adore so much, my husband, in possible future, I don't want him to get involved with this bloody war. I've seen it. It's deadly. A simple scratch from a blade that's poisoned could kill him. She would want to pull him out of that situation. But here, Rudius is saying, because Sylphie is involved here, I will put aside all of my desires to want to avoid all this political battles happening because I can't stand by while she's in danger, which is good on Rudius. Which honestly is good on Rudius. At this point, Ariel and Luke looked shocked. While Rudius was saddened by Saros' execution, he had no fondness for Notos that his father ran away from, or the Boreas family. Now granted, Rudius thought that they might assume that he hated the Boreas family, which he didn't. They treated him well. He owed them a great debt, well, besides Edis abandoning him, that was the only stain in that whole thing. But again, he doesn't have like these massive ties to them. And then Rudius spoke up. Although, Master Luke seems like he dislikes me. That's because you're a thick-headed idiot who doesn't understand how girl feels. Rudius knew that he was right. He didn't even know who Sylphie was for a year. And you're a piece of shit that toys with girls' feelings, Luke. I like how Sylphie is always over there, like, super quiet, never speaks up. And then suddenly, when this kind of is brought up, she immediately goes to defend her boyfriend. Rudius was shocked about how comfortable Sylphie was with Luke. Honestly, they had spent more time together than Rudius had spent with her. It made him a little jealous. At this point, Luke and Sylphie is firing back and forth at each other about her sex appeal. Suddenly, Sylphie looked to Rudius to defend her about her body. He said it was good. Rudius honestly wanted to jump into their little charades, but unfortunately, he didn't want to look bad in front of Ariel. As he glanced at Ariel, he finally noticed breadcrumbs on her lip. Please be quiet, both of you. At this point, Ariel then wanted to know what Rudius' plans were. She knew that he came here to cure his illness, which he has. I still need to search for my missing family members. So, if your intentions are to immediately depart to Ashra Kingdom and claim political power there, I cannot be of assistance. Yes, I'm aware of that. I don't mind if you hold off from assisting me until your family matters are settled. Don't tell me that now that your impotence is cured, you're just going to bid Sylphie goodbye and leave to find your father. Of course, I wouldn't do something like that. I'm going to be with her. In Rudius' mind, he thought, there's no way in hell that would ever let myself be separated from Sylphie. He is attached. He is absolutely attached to her, which is kind of unfortunate to his entire family. He's just like, nah, peace out, father. But again, he thinks that they're fine. But it was true that he couldn't really take Sylphie with him, and traveling could take months or years. Well then, what do you plan to do? I like this. I immediately seen this. I'm like, oh my gosh, she's doing the same thing to Rudius as she did to Sylphie. Just constantly. What do you want to do? I mean, it's like she never really... I guess with like Sylphie, it was pretty obvious what she was asking. Sylphie knew what she was asking. And again, Sylphie was just conflicted. But here it's like Rudius doesn't know what she's talking about. But she keeps doing the same thing. What do you plan to do? What do you want to do? It's like that is Ariel's thing. Just keep berating somebody until they just say right. And it's exactly what happens here. She's just berating him about something, and he literally says something else, and it completely shocks her. You wouldn't leave Sylphie to be damaged goods without taking any personal responsibility, would you? Of course. I'll take responsibility. I'm going to marry her. They look shocked. Again, this is not really... I don't think they really intended this to happen, but it just happens. You're going to marry Sylphie? Yes. Rudius is like the most unromantic proposal ever. Like, he didn't even talk to Sylphie about that. He just like proclaimed it in front of Ariel. It's like, do you want to talk to her first? Do you want to see if she's cool? I mean, he probably obviously knows she's okay with it, but still it's like, and again, she technically said, don't leave me ever again. She wants to be at his side forever. So, I don't know. It's just a... Why here, Rudius? Why here? And it's not until like I don't know, it felt like 3 chapters later that he finally goes, so yeah, by the way, we haven't really talked about this yet. I got a house and everything, but, you know, can we talk about this now? It's like, dang, Rudius. But it kind of goes into the whole aspect that Rudius isn't really, he's treading unknown territory. One aspect is that he just didn't even know anything about it in his previous life, really. I mean, besides what he read on the internet or maybe watched or whatever. But the bigger problem is the fact that he doesn't have any experience in it, especially in this world. He doesn't know their customs. He doesn't know how it works. Him even saying that he's going to marry her could probably be completely wrong. Granted, he did know that Lilia married and all that kind of stuff. He knows that marriage exists. He just doesn't know how it works. In his mind, Rudius realized it was fast. He probably should date for several months to get to know each other. Also, if they married... he couldn't be able to take off at any moment's notice if he got an urgent letter from Paul. Still, he meant what he said. He's realizing that he's going a little bit fast here. He's realizing this is going to cause problems if something happens with Paul, but still, they're words that he meant. He then thought back to Edis. He can't stop thinking about Edis. It's just always in his mind. He thought back to Edis. Sylphie might leave him too if he beat around the bush once more, instead of being clear and honest about his feelings. He couldn't take that again. He wanted to leave nothing to chance. I think this is kind of a pretty cool moment here. And again, I'm probably going to make some people mad here, but I think specifically what they're doing here, or at least what Refusion's doing here, is he's acknowledging with Rudius that Rudius knows that he hasn't really gotten his thought processes solidified. Yes, he knows that he loves her. Yes, he meant it when he said he wanted to marry her. But still, he kind of wonders, wait, this is not the normal process. we probably should hang out together. It is probably more of an older mindset. This idea that, no, we need to get to know each other. We have to have dates. That's what people did in my previous life. We had dates, and you made sure that you were cool with each other. But he doesn't want to leave it a chance. He's rushing into this as fast as possible with zero hesitation because he doesn't want Sylphie to leave him. And it's kind of a sad and tragic aspect of him, but I think it's just really a statement of his insecurities more than anything. Not to say that Rudeus is doing this because he doesn't love Sylphie. He's doing this because he has a massive amount of insecurity. Doesn't want to take that chance. Ariel was pleased with his claim. She then turned and addressed Sylphiette Greyrat in the room, asking what she wanted to do. What do you want to do? Obviously, Sylphie wanted to serve Ariel, but also Rudeus. Now that Rudeus has said that he will take you as his wife, isn't my protection unnecessary? Princess Ariel, please don't say that. Thank you. She then nudged Sylphie towards Rudeus. Sylphie, since you're going to be Rudeus's wife, you don't need to dress like a man anymore. Return to dressing like a woman. Even though later on she dresses up like Fitz. At least she just puts on the glasses, I guess, is really the thing. Rudeus spoke up in panic. But without Master Fitz as a disguise, in exchange, Rudeus, I will make use of your name. There isn't a person around these parts who hasn't heard of you. And many may jump to their own conclusion once they have learned I have handed you my right-hand woman. There it is. She got what she wanted. She got what she wanted. She basically Ariel basically went into the weapon shop and said, okay, I have this Fitz. I need to get that Rudeus up there. Can you get that Rudeus down for me? Can I trade them? She traded one weapon for another weapon. And again, I think it works for her because it's basically two birds, one stone with Ariel. Again, assuming that Ariel truly does love Sylphie. Again, I'm still keeping this fun little aspect here. Not that I really kind of set myself to it. I like keeping this fun aspect here of Ariel manipulating everybody. That she doesn't truly care. Not that I believe it. But it is one of those aspects. She's technically on the side of her truly caring for Sylphie. Two birds, one stone. She got Sylphie. She basically was able to get Sylphie what Sylphie wanted. She got Sylphie her loved one. At the same time, over here, she's gaining a weapon. She's gaining exactly what she wanted, which is Rudeus. And technically, since Rudeus beat Fitz, it's one of those aspects that she just got an upgrade weapon. In the scheme of people's perception of her, she essentially got the weapon that beat her weapon. In thought, Rudeus acknowledged that he's fine with her making a definitive declaration about his loyalties, if not as a sympathizer to her cause, but rather someone connected through Sylphie. So right here, he's acknowledged that he's fine with her saying to other people that he has a loyalty to her, which is a big, massive deal. I was actually pretty shocked when I read this. This is showing that Rudeus isn't just going to be a bystander. He's literally saying, okay, I'm devoted to this. I'm going to get involved. He's not going to beat around the bush. He's not going to be wishy-washy about it. He's literally saying, I'm a part of this now. But yes, he does also mention the idea of just being connected through Sylphie, which I don't think has as much weight. If she goes and talks to some big noble and says, oh, have you heard about Rudeus Greyrat? Yeah, he's in love with my... he's in love with my lackey. It's not going to hold much weight. Saying that Rudeus is declaring his loyalty to her, that's a big deal. But no, she corrects. Unnecessary. Your power is far too great for my hands to contain. And of course, if anything should happen to you, you're free to drop my name as need be. Despite my current circumstances, the name of the second princess of the Oscar Kingdom may prove useful to you. I appreciate that. It never hurt to have friends in high places. Even if she'd be calling his name if she ever made her move. And so, he became part of Ariel's inner circle and engaged to Sylphie. Just casually happened, you know, just I engaged with Sylphie. It kind of happened in the moment. Because the Ariel, what do you want to do, Rudeus? That's my new joke. I hope that comes up again later. Moving on to chapter 2, things to prepare before marriage. Part 1. This is where it gets pretty interesting, and again, I kind of hit on it a little bit earlier, this idea that Rudeus doesn't really know what to do here. Marriage. Something unexplored in his previous life. The prospects of it made Rudeus anxious. He had no idea what it entailed. And honestly, he hasn't actually seen a ceremony. He didn't even know what a married man was supposed to do. It was fine, though. he just had to ask. So he started with Zenoba. Obviously, he knew Zenoba got married at some point, which then at that point seen Cliff joining in as well. It seemed that in Cerrone, the men would send gifts to the partner's household, but it was actually opposite in Millis. The women were given a dowry to provide to the husband, but in exchange, the man was expected to assist the wife's family if they ever needed it. So pretty much with that, you're pretty much marrying the family. With that, you're pretty much marrying the family. And of course, it seemed like it was different with every single race. But Cliff didn't know what was expected of elves. Yes, Cliff would marry Ellen Elise once he removed the curse, but she's not like most elves. So Cliff doubts that she'd be fussy about it. Still, through this conversation, nobody mentioned a ceremony. So he decided to press further. The conversation shifted to a house. It seemed like it was normal that a man would welcome a woman into a home, which yes, made sense because Paul did move to Buena Village when he got married. Though he did technically enlist Philip's help to get a home and work. Then there was a problem that technically couples didn't live together in the dorms, so he would have to find a house outside of the dorms. Finally, Cliff spoke up in the questioning. Are you getting married? He naturally wanted to know who, but Rudius decided to respond that it was just the person that cured him. And that is as much as he could do. The rest, it was a secret. Knowing this, Cliff offered a ceremony at the church if the woman was of the Millis faith. And Zenoba offered to pay to buy Rudius a home. He said he had enough that he could buy pretty much any home, like the biggest homes in this area. But Rudius was not really comfortable with relying on him for that. So the next day, Rudius decided that he would go to the real estate agency. In most regions, the liege lord would actually offer home loans to residents. But there was no clear regional lord in Sharia. Instead, the three magic nations and the magician guilds jointly administered the territory through establishment of a real estate agency that resolved any problems that arose. Rudius thought to himself, whatever those problems might be, ? Which is so funny to think about now. Yeah, this whole problems that arise with this moment right here that he acknowledged. And then what we get into later on, it's like, and yet nobody wanted to resolve that situation. At the agency, he received a list, but he really didn't know what to get. Maybe one with a garden and a room for a big dog might be best. A sacred beast? I immediately thought, I need to go, hey, can I have the sacred beast? I need a dog for my home. Or maybe Linnea and Priscilla. So wrong. He was fine with a small one, but Sylphie was the princess's guard, and Ariel might come visit sometimes. He didn't want to make her look bad, basically. Thinking about this, he thought maybe he should actually take up Zenoba on his offer to buy a bigger one. But no, he didn't want to do that. He also wanted to bring Sylphie to help him make the decision, but it seemed like it was customary for a man to welcome a woman into a home, not home shop with them, I guess. He finally noticed a manor at the corner of the residential district. Apparently, it was cheap because it was cursed. The previous owner had passed it off as just being wind, but was found brutally murdered. There was a call for an exorcism, but the first person to take up the task was also murdered. With all this in mind, he offered to sign a provisional contract and scope it out first. In the guarantor, he put down Princess Ariel and Bodyguy. Okay, Princess Ariel did say that he could use her name, which definitely blows up in his face later on, by the way. But Bodyguy, like, I guess he asked Bodyguy to put in a good name for him, and he would do this whole process to making the Kishirika statues, so maybe he felt it was okay to drop his name. When the lady seen the form, she quickly went pale and retreated back. A manager returned, rubbing his hands. Yes. After some discussion, he was able to reduce the price by half. Rudius is honestly not sure which name gave him the VIP treatment. Probably Princess Ariel. If anything, Bodyguy, he's like, what? What? Bodyguy, what? When he got to the manor, it was pretty solid. Despite it being centuries old, he assumed that it was protected by some sort of mana to keep it from decaying. Inside, it was beautiful. But the problem, obviously, was the haunting. So, he brought Zenoba and Cliff with him. During the day, they scoped it out. We had Zenoba in the front, we had Rudius in the middle, and he had Cliff in the back. For the most part, it's pretty much Zenoba being the shield, because he's got this blessing and everything. He had this big club that Rudius made out of earth magic, so if he breaks it, because apparently he's good at breaking stuff, it wouldn't matter. Of course, you had Rudius in the middle, which was mainly an attacker, and then Cliff in the back, who could do exorcism if it was a spirit type, because he was obviously very skilled in divine magic. I like the fact that he knows that Zenoba would be his shield, in case a knife-wielding, red-headed doll would attack him. So we're going from Evangelion to Chucky. And Cliff technically tagged along with him because he was eyeing him like he wanted to be invited. Yes, very quickly, unfortunately, Zenoba just broke the front door, which Rudius had to kind of reprimand him for it. Like, dude, please don't break things. He's like, it was, master, it was crooked. Inside, Zenoba was saying that it was too small, Cliff was saying it was too big, so Rudius kind of felt, well, in the middle, I guess we're doing good here. As they entered in, Rudius was very clear to them, to be aware. He knew there would probably be no traps, but obviously the place was kind of a little bit worn down, so to be careful where you step and look for the ceiling and make sure that nothing falls on you. Cliff was shocked about how serious he was taking it, but yes, he was an A-rank adventurer, which reminded Rudius to ask Cliff how his whole adventuring thing went. Apparently, according to Cliff, they completely ripped into him. They were S-rank after all. But Rudius figured that they probably didn't rip into him. Being that Cliff was a genius, he probably interpreted it differently when they were just pointing out his flaws. Which is kind of funny because why didn't Rudius go? Rudius was afraid that someone being younger to him pointing out his flaws would make him angry. It happened anyways. It just happened anyways. Anyways, Rudius instructed Cliff to stick with beginner-level divine magic on spirit-based monsters. But if there was anything else, that he would just hang back. The way he explained it was that being that his magic was so strong, he might damage the house, which Cliff accepted. Zenoba, on the other hand, seemed confident and unafraid. He had a warrior spirit, which was heartening. In the right room, they found a living space with a fireplace. They checked the chimney for monsters, but found nothing. However, there was a magic circle in place so that it could be used. Next room on the right seemed to be a kitchen with a stove. He found an apron and imagined Sylphie in nothing but it. Then snapped into focus. Nothing amiss here. Checking the other side rooms, everything was clear on the first floor. It almost seemed as if it was mirrored on both sides. You had a kitchen-sized room that was mirrored on the other side, but it just didn't have a stove. It was almost as if two houses, identical houses, was connected in the middle. Upon agreement, they moved to the basement. It seemed like it was just an unused storage space with shelves. Upon checking the upstairs, Rudius got lost in thought of what type of bed to get. Smaller to be more in close proximity, or a larger one. He asked Cliff his thoughts, and after a pause, "Oh, you. Yes, that's an important aspect of a relationship, but you're not doing your partner justice if that's the only thing you're focusing on." "Oh, well, yes, I suppose you're right." Cliff's words were compelling. It was probably that he was speaking on experience. He could see Elise lunging on him with lustful eyes the moment they were alone. I might be reading too much into this, I typically do, but I totally seen like a mirror aspect here. Rudius constantly just waiting for the moment that he can leap on Sylphie. It's pretty much the same thing that Cliff is experiencing. Elise is just constantly waiting for the moment that she can leap onto him. I think he's sort of giving Sylphie's perspective a little bit here. Not that Cliff thinks exactly like him, but it's the same kind of mirror aspect here. But honestly, I think the bigger aspect here is that if the only thing Rudius can think about is, man, what kind of bed so I can do it, it's just kind of that aspect that I'm wondering if it'll ever actually get into it. I don't know that it ever is. But again, I've mentioned this before, this aspect that's all Rudius thinks about is the next time he's going to do it with her. And he's not really thinking about much anything else. He's not giving as much thought to other things around Sylphie as that. Anyhow, with everything checked, they decided to stay the night as planned. The rumor said the spirit only showed up at night. While it was odd for a monster to be in the middle of a town, low-rank adventurers were murdered. They couldn't let their guard down. It could possibly be bandits that were hiding out in that house at night. He honestly really considered bringing Elise along because she's seen a lot in her life. But Rudius was honestly afraid that she'd turn him on now that he was back in action again. He could imagine keeping watch and she'd sneak up behind him. She'd whisper temptations into his ear. He would say, "Cliff is sleeping right beside us." And she'd respond, "So what?" This is so funny now that I know this. Like, later on, this is sort of like semi-spoilers for, I think it was like chapter 5 or 6. At some point, he mentions the fact that he technically has been avoiding Elise, like, for a while now. And so he kind of feels bad about it. And this is kind of one of those moments where you get that establishment that he's been avoiding her because he's afraid that she would turn him on now. And again, he wants to save himself for Sylphie. Anyways, he's focused himself, telling Zenoba and Cliff to stay alert. "I'm worried about Julie. I'm worried about Elise." With these words, Rudius thought Julie was clever and knew her status. But Elise would probably use Cliff's absence to have an affair. Again, she technically has to. She technically has to. It just shows how much Cliff loves Elise, like he's just thinking about her. Then Rudius remembered. He forgot to tell Sylphie that he'd be staying there the whole night. He nearly decided to leave to inform her, but he was frightened at the thought that Zenoba and Cliff would be murdered while he was gone. It would be fine, just this once. But he remembered that relationships fell apart with that line. The only solution was to raise his own death flag. Zenoba. Yes, what is it, Master? I'm getting married once we finish this mission. Indeed. Let's finish it quickly, so we can have a grand celebration here. Cliff spoke up. Make sure you invite me and Lise. Of course, why wouldn't you be invited? Just making sure. It's one thing that I'm left out, but I'd be sad to see it happen to her. Again, I think this is, again, I'm already, this is one of the cool things about me reading through it, taking notes, and then doing this Mushoku Monday, because as I come back through it, it's almost like my reread. I'm already having rereads as I do Mushoku Mondays. I wonder if it's right here hinting at the fact that Ellen Lise is upset that Rudius is avoiding her. That Cliff will be alone with Ellen Lise, and she's like, I don't know why, but it feels like Rudius is avoiding me. She doesn't know that he's cured. She doesn't know that he's avoiding her. And it's probably hitting Cliff heavy. And so when they brought up this whole ceremony, he's like, make sure to invite Lise. She's upset that you don't want to be around her. Please invite her, kind of thing. It kind of hurts. It kind of hurts now to think about all this stuff, because now I know what happens in chapter 6. As day turned to night, elsewhere, Sylphie got wind that Rudius was house hunting and was busy fantasizing as she hugged her pillow. Yes, they mentioned it later, but yes, by dropping Ariel's name, that got to her really quickly. Chapter 3, Things to Prepare Before Marriage, Part 2. Rudius, Zenoba, and Cliff took turns standing watch. While Cliff was on watch, it happened. A sound. Creak, creak, clack, clack, kiki. As Rudius opened the door to the room, the sound stopped. Being as the previous owner ignored the sounds and died, they had to search. After searching the whole house, they found nothing. All that was left was the basement. Even though it was empty before, Rudius felt something ominous. But again, there was nothing there. At this point, they decided to return to the upstairs room and prepare themselves. But just when they decided to rest, it was there, behind him in the hallway, low to the ground, almost crawling. He thought at first it was human. It had eyes, a nose, a mouth, but no hair or ears. There was also a sense it wasn't alive. It painted a haunting, pale silhouette in the darkness as it watched them. For a few seconds, they stared at one another. Just as Rudius was about to say something, it leaped onto the second floor. It had 4 arms, 4 legs, brandishing what looked like a stake. It then charged at them. Rudius panicked, fell on his butt, and fired off a stone cannon. Subconsciously, he feared damaging the house, so it caused him to hesitate, making it fire weaker, striking it in the arm, but still causing it to stagger. It came down on Rudius with a stake. As Rudius attempted to dodge it with his eye of foresight, Zenoba leapt in front of him, taking the stake right at his heart. But thankfully, his blessed skin was too tough for the attack. I was gonna be so mad if they just went off and killed Zenoba right here. It's like, no, don't take my Zenoba from me. Oh, I hurt. It was like one of those like quick little heart jump moments. Zenoba then grabbed it by its face as it wailed punches from its 6 arms. Cliff peeked out of the room to fire it off an exorcism. He's just like, exercise. He runs back into it probably. But it didn't stop it. It wasn't a spirit. Zenoba, get out of the way. I'm gonna use stone cannon. Please wait, master. Zenoba wouldn't move, even though the stake was tearing his clothes to shreds. Enough, move, I'll handle it. Please, wait, master, I beg you. He threw his arms around a thing, like he was trying to protect it from Rudius. After a while, it slowed down and stopped attacking. Zenoba then took off his shredded garments and bound its hands and feet. Master, let's return to the room. All right. As they entered the room, Cliff stood in the center. Don't get the wrong idea. It's not like I ran away. I just figured that I'd be in the way in that cramped hallway. Oh, I see. Good thinking. Right? Honestly, he wasn't convincing, but Rudius was scared too, so he wasn't going to say anything. I always respect Rudius for not pointing out things like this. Whenever somebody is obviously afraid, he doesn't shove it in their face. I think that's a really cool thing. Again, acknowledging that he himself was startled. Well, at this point, Rudius is like, dude, Zenoba, that was completely reckless. Please don't do that again. But at the same time, he was grateful. He was grateful that he saved him. However, Zenoba was more interested in what he caught. It was a doll. So now we all know why Zenoba was getting all excited. White painted wooden mannequin to be exact. 4 arms and legs, definitely a construct. The stake was actually a broken arm. While Rudius and Cliff stood cautiously, Zenoba wasn't able to hide his excitement. I love this guy. Master, this is an incredible discovery. Zenoba, I don't care how much you love dolls. This is
This one moved. A moving doll.
A moving doll. In Rudius's mind, he thought it was moving on his own. An automaton. Like a robot. A maid robot. Suddenly, Rudius's fear disappeared. I like how they're like, Zenoba and Rudius are totally thinking about different things, but their minds come together with an agreement that this is something really, really good. It's more the fact that Rudius has like much more fantasies that he's pretty much been seeing that regards to this, and Zenoba is just he's a sproutling. He's just growing. You're right. That is incredible.
You finally understand?
Yeah, I'm glad we didn't destroy it. Zenoba, your judgment was flawless.
I knew what it was at first glance.
I'd expect no less. Your eye for dolls has already surpassed mine. It's such a dorky chemistry. I love these two together. I'm shipping Zenoba and Rudius again. It got Rudius thinking. The doll was carved from wood, but maybe he could make stone figurines move as well. Then if he could make some sort of substance like silicon, like human skin, the possibilities were endless. Zenoba, what should I do? My heart is pounding so hard.
Mine too. I can feel tears coming.
Zenoba's thinking the same damn thing, just for more of a... just more of an old style, I guess. This whole time I was thinking about like the Julie Good Smile Company kind of thing. The Julie Smile Company with this big like assembly line of dwarf girls that are all making figurines, and they're going to mass produce the figurines to sell and stuff like that. Now my mind's going to this Zenoba, like in some 10 years later or something, Zenoba's gonna have this line of sex robot automaton things that just are selling like crazy. They'll do whatever you want.
Do you have lonely nights? Would you like somebody in your presence? Well, call us now, and we'll provide you one of these dolls that will take care of you. Beautifully crafted by Master. They will be yours, Master.
Bad. So bad. He's gonna make a fortune. For now, they would research it. This isn't the time to be talking about stuff like that.
Not the time to be talking about what stuff?
Zenoba grabbed Cliff by the head and lifted him up. Rudius hadn't seen this in a while, but still, he told Zenoba to release him. Cliff knew that this was a common thing. Monsters like armor that would move on their own. The doll was likely the evil spirit they were looking for, but there was a chance it wasn't the only one. They could capture any others and look for information on how they were made. They checked the house again. He suspected the garden, but that didn't pan out. There was doll footprints there, but they didn't lead anywhere. He then suspected there was a hidden room in the house. With the house being symmetrical, they could look for something off, but that led to nothing again, especially with the lack of light. They decided to take the doll back to the university and wait for daytime to search. When they got to better light, the doll seemed very old, peeling paint and molded. Quickly, Julie offered to clean it like she typically did whenever Zenoba brought home something, but they needed to wrap up things in the manor, so they sealed it in a box made of earth magic. They didn't want it attacking Julie while they were gone. Returning to Manor, he searched the fireplace again. But this time he realized there wasn't any soot on the floor. It was cleaned, and the cloth on the doll's feet were black. He thought, was it cleaning every night? To return to the basement, they brought a bunch of lamps in so it was able to light up the entire thing. He noticed a darkened square shape on the wall, a hidden door they missed in the dark. It had no handle though. He recalled back to his memories of his school visiting a ninja village, so he pushed one side of it, and it barely creaked, so he had Zenoba push it. It opened to a room with a desk and a casket-like pedestal. In the pedestal, there was a transparent crystal embedded in the wood. He assumed this was what was recharging the doll. It would come in there, it would sit down, and it would recharge, hoping that Cliff would know something because he knows about magical implements, he's been studying them. But unfortunately, Cliff didn't know anything. On the desk, there was a book that hadn't been eaten by bugs, assuming it was kept clean by the doll. It had a title and a crest in a language Rudius couldn't read, which meant that it was likely Sky God tongue, Sea God tongue, or a language so obscure that he never heard of. However, the crest and the script felt familiar to Rudius. In the book, there was sketches of magic circles. Later, there was drawing of the four-legged, four-armed doll. Around the sketches were arrows and text, seemingly annotations and commentary. There was also detailed sketches of limbs and magic circles. It was packed with unknown information. Judging by the sketches alone, this seems to be similar to the magic circles used to enchant magical implements. Really? Yeah, I could tell because I've been researching them lately. The doll must be a magical implement. Crazy. So that's it. Rudius figured the previous, or rather, the first owner of the house was researching something forbidden. It was probably made to protect the house. Whether he left his work incomplete, died, moved on, or was caught, Rudius had no idea. Considering he left his fruits of his labor behind, must have meant that he may have seen some sort of unforeseen accident. This is getting into some very interesting stuff. I think this is probably like the earlier section chapters where I started to get some nuggets of information. Granted, all the way up to this point, I've been having a lot of fun with Zenoba and Cliff and Rudius. But again, I'm not going to sit here and just read out all of the dialogue that happened, but I had a lot of fun with it. They have a great chemistry. Rudius, Cliff, and Zenoba have a great chemistry. Mainly because I love Zenoba to death. But Cliff is just, he's got a good heart, even though he's not experienced and he gets afraid and hides like he did. But they just have a good chemistry. Cliff is caring, Zenoba loves his master, and Rudius cares for both of them. When Zenoba gets attacked by the thing, he's terrified that something happened to Zenoba, and he's like, please don't do something like that. That's reckless. You could have gotten yourself hurt. Even though he was very happy that Zenoba saved his life. But it does kind of open up a door in this idea of, technically what we've seen mostly from magical implements is it's just kind of things that make things convenient. So, like they're kind of mentioning, it's a fireplace. So it's a magical implement, which is a fireplace, and so it lights a fire. Or you have, again, that little object that was akin to a lighter. Again, they haven't gotten too much magical implements, which I wish they would. Like when Rudius was going to go buy them, I kind of wish he did so we can see more. It almost feels like they're purposely avoiding getting into magical implements because it's going to reveal too much or something. But it's really cool to finally start seeing some of this. And the idea that somebody was doing something to create this construct that moves on its own, it's crazy to think about. And I'm curious if this is something that's going to go into... Yes, we're making a lot of jokes on the idea right now because Zenoba wants it for a particular reason. Zenoba wants to make a doll that he can't... That it's a doll because he loves dolls, and possibly he could fix if he breaks it. So sad. I feel so bad for Zenoba. We're obviously thinking really inappropriate things here. We're just thinking about a maid and silicone and stuff like that, skin. But at its core, it's got a bigger thought process here. What if you create an army of them? This thing has killed, yes, granted, I think it was our E rank adventurers. Still, it's killing people. It nearly killed Rudius, technically. Zenoba stopped it. But then when you have 1,000 of them, that's scary. And that's something that's like they're messing with something really dangerous here, because obviously what they're going to do is they're going to research it. And Rudius doesn't want anybody finding out about it, doesn't want it harming anybody, but they're going to keep it a secret. Even though it's technically possibly forbidden stuff here. And the thought process that they're possibly unraveling, creating something that could be used as a weapon. It's crazy. Even though Zenoba probably doesn't want that.
Master, don't use it for war, Master. I want to love them.
I love when things just randomly pop in my head and just completely sidetrack me. So, Rudius gets involved with this war and goes, you know what? Zenoba just figured out this whole thing with these automaton. So, let's just create a whole bunch of them. We're going to create an army of them. That way nobody dies, on our end anyways. And he just creates this big old army of these things. And they inscribe every single one of them. They all become active. And he sends them out on this big battlefield. And it's like some epic movie done by a big studio. And it's this big, massive war. These big things running down the field. And then behind them is Zenoba. Wait, come back. Or he's just attached to one of them. No. Not my babies. Oh, gosh. Anyways. It's cool, though. It's interesting. Very interesting stuff. Little nugget of coolness here that I was really fascinated by. The thing that I think is the biggest question mark for me is how it sort of describes it interesting. Like, when they first went down to that basement, he said that he's seen this door. And it was the actual scrapings on the ground was a few panels over from where the edge of the door was at. So he thought about, again, his previous life and them going to this one place where they have these ninjas and that you push this one side and it would open up. What I'm assuming is they're talking about where you push it and it kind of does this whole thing. It's not like a door. It's like, it's hinged in the middle, basically. And it sort of kind of implies this idea of like a ninja door. I don't think it's going that route, but it could be this idea that whoever created that has, at least in his mind, doors that we've seen in, feudal Japan with ninjas and stuff. So, pin placed. Whoever this person from the past that made this stuff might be from our world. Pin placed. Afterwards, they checked the house again, kept an eye out for several more days to be safe, then signed the contract for the house. He told them a fiendish monster had roosted in a hidden room. He then had someone clean up and repair the house, as well as some basic furnishings put in. While Rudius's mind wandered into his fantasies about Sylphie's surprise, he did have a bit of concern. What if she was disappointed? No, she wasn't selfish. He was pretty sure she wasn't. In the end, Rudius secured a nice place and inherited one of its treasures left behind. Some sort of magical implement. There was probably some sort of proper protocol for this kind of discovery to submit it to the Magicians Guild, but he wasn't an official member yet. While they were moving the pedestal and the research materials to the university, Zenoba called out to Rudius with a serious expression. This hurt. This hurt right here. My boy Zenoba, it hurt right here.
Might I convince you to leave the research of the moving doll entirely to me?
He had determination in his eyes.
My mana pool is deplorably small, and my hands are far too clumsy. I'm even holding you back on the red worm figurine we're supposed to be making for Julie. I've barely made any progress on it. However, I feel like I can carry out your research. Honestly, looking at the book gives me a sense of what the author wanted to accomplish.
He's like,
the author and me had an appreciation. A peculiar appreciation.
Rudius realized that they obviously had the same passion.
That said, identifying and translating the language may take some time. Perhaps it would be faster for you to lead the research.
Hypothetically, what would you do if that doll were to go berserk again?
Even if it were to go on rampage, I could recapture it without injury. You saw that for yourself, didn't you?
Honestly, Rudius realized he didn't have time to research it, so it was probably best to leave it to him. However, he had fears of it being left in Zenoba's room. Perhaps a university research chamber? No, maybe forbidden magic. Maybe off campus was best. Even though Nanahoshi was doing similar stuff with the magic circles. She was technically doing forbidden crap over here. I don't know if it's... Yeah, I guess it would be technically be forbidden, because it has something to do with teleportation, at least. Technically, they're trying to do summoning, but anyways. Perhaps she could put in a good word for Rudius, since she is an A-rank member of the guild. Here's where it hurt.
Please, Master, when your plan is fully realized, I don't want my only contribution to be money.
Zenoba had put a lot of thought into this, despite Rudius having this concern that he had this single-minded fixation on figurines.
I beg you, please, entrust this to me, Master.
Yes, he mistook Rudius's pause as him being reluctant. He was prostrating himself in the snow. Okay, I get it. Just stand up. I'll leave it to you.
Truly?
He leapt up with a face of absolute joy. Again, I want to see this face. It's kind of similar to like the reuniting in the classroom. I want to see that face. That like long jaw thing. There is a possibility that you'll be treading into forbidden magic territory.
Forbidden magic?
Yes, we'll borrow a research chamber from the university for now. So do your work there.
Thank you.
Cliff spoke up. Would you two just quit drawing attention to yourself in the middle of the street? This scene's gonna be like this like tragic, like heavy moment. And then suddenly the camera's gonna pan over and Cliff's gonna be like, can you guys please? With that, Zenoba was assigned to research the automated dolls, and Rudius got a crib. Next up, renovations. Like I said, I enjoyed this chapter mainly because it was just fun to see the three of them. Granted, besides the whole automaton thing, the rest of it was just kind of nothing to really chew on. Besides their relationships really forming and building. A lot of character, really. A lot of character development. Chapter 4, though. Dramatic. Rudius ended up employing the help of Balda of the Large Hollow, an artist, renovator, expert architect affiliated with the Magicians Guild. He had 30 years of experience from layout design and construction, having acquired his skills in the Holy Church of Millis, which is really unfortunate for the things that he has made. One notable achievement is his building a detached school building for the University of Magic. He earned the nickname Balda the Hammer for his stubborn nature, hammering anything into shape, be it something in a stranger's house or his own pupils. As the dwarf scolded Rudius for damaging the door, Rudius brushed his angry words off. Despite this ticking Balda off, he kept his feelings to himself. He had heard Rudius the Quagmire was a terrifying individual. As they entered Rudius' new manor, Balda had noted the floor was well crafted, but the walls and ceilings were shoddy. He stated that it was almost as if the basement was the most important part of the building. So what that dude was doing his research, obviously. Everything else just looked like it was built around it. He was perceptive. In Balda's eyes, the rooms and the stairs were made by a talented builder 100 years ago, but someone else made the renovations to the walls and the ceiling. That's where it all went haywire. When they arrived at the fireplace, Balda felt it shouldn't be messed with. The emblem Rudius noticed was a mark of a genius craftsman. His name was lost in time, but in the Asura Kingdom, magical implements with this mark fetched a high price. Yes, they're kind of already insinuating here, this is the doll maker, the person that owned this house. Most of them were small gadgets though, so this kind of surprised Balda. The fact that it was something large like a fireplace and that it was found and made here. And yes, this is the point which Rudius realizes this is the same crest that he found in that diary. So whoever this dude that was lost, his name was lost in time, that from back here, came here at some point, was doing this massive research. And Rudius is assuming that something happened to him at this point. He died or something, and this is what was left behind. Which the question is, was he trying to make these things for a war, or was he just made them to protect the house while he did something else? At this point, they decided that they were going to make this area into a large dining area. And the opposite side, they were going to make a lounge. Balda then deduced that the second kitchen that they were talking about was probably a room for bathing, which Rudius immediately came up with a great idea, which made the dwarf's eyes light up. The renovations would then begin. Yes, the other kitchen would become a modern bathing room. Additionally, Rudius requested a strange design for the basement's secret room, something that seemed to counter a follower of the Millis faith. Yeah. Machinery and materials were brought to the basement to fulfill the request. 2 weeks later, the renovations were complete and Rudius arrived with Sylphie. Oh, I wonder what you wanted to show me. I'm so excited. You sound like you're reading those lines from a piece of paper, Sylphie. Don't tell me you secretly gathered intel and already know what it is. Oh? Whatever do you mean? I have no idea what you're talking about. Apparently, while he wasn't looking, the honest-to-fault girl he knew learned how to lie. But apparently, it was Rudius' fault. Yes, he used Princess Ariel's name, and so that information got back to her. Still, Sylphie had fears of Rudius being so handsome and running off to someone else. Her chest was so small. But Rudius didn't discriminate, and proceeded to grab her. In public. And so she got angry. She doesn't like public affection. As they reached the house, Sylphie adjusted her sunglasses while grumbling. That sort of foreplay was meant for nighttime in the bedroom. At this point, we note the fact that Rudius had the roof colored bright green, symbolizing Sylphie's hair. He figured that she never liked her hair, but he did. Her eyes were full of admiration as she looked over the house. As they went into the dining room first, Rudius' nervousness caused him to slip into a speech of a car salesman. As Sylphie wondered why a table of 10 would be needed, Rudius responded that they would have guests there at some point. But both were obviously considering filling those seats with children. They checked the living room, where Sylphie finally questioned why Rudius was speaking like that. He admitted that he was just nervous. They nearly kissed, but then Rudius rushed her to check the kitchen. It's so normal. It sure is. Rudius gave her a solemn expression before she returned one and nodded, off to the washroom. He had a laundry room area in the front, and behind a door was a bath. He said that he would explain how it worked, and she said, that's fine, you could teach me later. This made Rudius overjoyed. He was honestly worried about how he can get her to take a bath with him. It doesn't really get into it here, but I'm wondering if this is actually hitting on his trauma of what happened with him a long time ago. When the last time they went to bathe together, bad things happened. I don't know if it's like hinting that he's afraid that's going to happen again. It's just kind of saying that he just was worried that he couldn't take a bath with her or something. He's just really excited about it, really. I think, if anything, he's just really excited. He really wants to take a bath with her. Rudius then mentioned that there was tribes out there that loved ones washed each other's bodies. Sylphie had never heard of it, but she claimed that she'd try her best. I think this is Rudius just making up things again. He's like, there's a tribe out there that does this. I've never heard of that, but okay. Moving upstairs to the bedroom, Sylphie was shocked by a large bed enough for 3, with 1 pillow. Why so big? So they can enjoy themselves whenever they were alone, of course. They both shot toothy grins. With everything shown off, he wanted to get busy. But there was something he wanted to talk about first. Big shock. Rudius is in the bedroom right now. Nobody's there. And he's like, wait, we can't do that yet. I got something to talk about. Who are you and what do you do with Rudius? Rudius mentioned that it was been some time since he announced what he did to Ariel, but they hadn't taken much time to actually discuss it. He rushed off to buy a house, but he couldn't help but feel he was rushing ahead. He didn't know what he was supposed to do. But Sylphie was happy with everything he had done. The only thing she was really worried about was if it was okay for her to live in such a luxurious place. With that cleared up, he needed to discuss what would happen in the future. She immediately went red. She was fine with however many he wanted. But being an elf, it would be very difficult for her to get pregnant, which, yes, we've technically talked about this before with Ellen Lace. Despite the fact that she's sleeping everywhere, she didn't really get pregnant much. Which, yes, hearing this was extremely sexy for Rudius to hear. This means they're going to have to keep going at it. Yes, he had a natural animal instincts to make babies. But that aside, he wanted to understand of her career. He wanted to know what she was going to do about her work with Princess Ariel. If she got pregnant, she wouldn't be able to continue being Ariel's bodyguard. Sure, Rudius or someone else could fill in, but that wasn't the only aspect of being Ariel's bodyguard. But Sylphie calmed him. Apparently, she and Ariel had already discussed that. Ariel had plans to stay in the country for the next 2 years at least. And even then, they didn't have plans to immediately head to the Ashra Kingdom. It's not like she graduates from the school and it's time of war. She's doing stuff. She has to build something up. It's just, this was a way of facilitating bringing people in. Their current plans were roughly 5 more years. At this point, Rudius noted that Sylphie made no mentions of her quitting her bodyguard work. This spoke volumes to the strength of her bond with Ariel and Luke. Again, we're establishing here that Sylphie has no plans of even stopping this. Despite my own wishes that she did do that, Sylphie does not want to do that. She doesn't want to abandon Luke and Ariel. I am kind of curious that it kind of puts a lot of emphasis on the idea of Sylphie, yes, saying don't push yourself, Rudius. You know, I would like you to help Ariel, but it never gives the option to Rudius, would you want me to leave? That's a more curious question. She never gives Rudius the option, do you want me to leave Ariel? Which I think is a more interesting question that they could have posed. Not that I think Rudius would tell her to do that. I'm not saying that. Rudius at this point wondered what the old Sylphie, the one that was dependent on him, would say about this. This change that she has. Going from back then where she was just following him everywhere, just super dependent on him. Now, she has this strong bond with somebody besides Rudius. But here, it kind of posed the question that I made earlier. He wondered if she would throw it all aside to follow him. Again, my question was more, why hasn't Sylphie ever asked Rudius, do you want me to leave Ariel so we can go somewhere? He's now saying, I wonder if she would throw it all aside if I said, let's go. Let's leave. Let's go to Bagrat. Let's leave here. Let's leave this war. Would she do it? The thought of her actually doing that made him happy, but she interrupted his thought process. Sorry, now that I think about it, it's unfair to you, isn't it? You provided me with such a magnificent home, but I won't be able to spend much time in it because of my work with Ariel. I guess I don't really deserve to be your wife, do I? She's so self-pouty. She's so self-pouty. She's such a pouty girl. Despite all of this success that she's done, all of this building of confidence she's done, all this pushing forward that she's done, all of the going out of her way in order to push away her fear to get out there, she's still like such a pouty girl. Am I not big enough? Is my body not good enough? I don't really deserve to be your wife, do I? Oh, I'm not good enough for you, am I? It's so funny. She lowered her head in sorrow. Am I not good enough after all? She's still not my favorite. Rudius felt kind of guilty. After all those years of being unable to perform, when he finally got it going again, the only thought in his head was Sylphie, someone who would let me have sex with her. It wasn't a bad thing. She initiated it. Even giving him an aphrodisiac and letting him have his way with her. Even though it was her first time. Even though he was a sex fiend that beast folk were turned off by. If Sylphie was afraid of him, she showed no signs of it. The next morning, she looked at him and smiled. If not now, then when? If not Sylphie, then whom? Roxy, obviously! That's okay. If he hesitated and she married someone else, he would regret it for the rest of his life. If she was taken from him, wait, she already belonged to him. You're mine, Sylphie. Yes, I'm yours, Rudy. So please, marry me. He realized this was the first time he'd actually asked. Again, you don't know, you're not very good at romance, Rudy. Yes. Her cheeks heated up as she nodded. Then she let out a small sigh of relief. With that, he told her not to worry about the bodyguard work. He'd take care of the home. He just wanted to sleep with her every few days or so. But only if she wanted. If she was exhausted, he wanted her to take it easy. He just requested that he be able to touch her a little bit and he'd handle the rest himself. He realized at this point that his desires kept falling out of his mouth. He kept saying these really inappropriate things and stuff. But he realized it didn't matter. There was no point in playing it cool with Sylphie. This was who he was. I like this because it's kind of a changing in Rudius. And the idea that he's finally kind of being... Honestly, that's what she asked. Remember way back here, she's like, please stop, Rudius. Stop talking to me so formally. It feels like you're pushing me away. She wanted him to be casual and comfortable with him. And we had this little brief moment where he sees her being casual and comfortable with Luke, and it makes him jealous. And now right here, he just kind of lets himself do it. Just say what you're saying. It's not like she's suddenly going to go, oh my gosh, gross, I'm out of here now. She's going to accept him, so just be natural with yourself. She's going to accept these things that you say. Be comfortable. Be yourself. Be your disgusting self. Be your perverted, disgusting self. Again, you're a couple now. Voice them and see if she's okay with it. Do you like my breasts that much? I love them. But Luke says there's nothing appealing. She's girl on her chest. Get over it already. She gotta bring up her chest every 2 seconds. Is this like the 5th, like the 10th time we talked about her chest now? Again, technically she's like scarred for life because she's been hanging out with Luke for so long. Don't trust anything a young whippersnapper like that says. Rudius felt the younger the guy was, the more obsessed he was with breasts being bigger or smaller. That wasn't the important part. It was the heart. And yes, technically, the smaller the chest, the closer you get to their heart. I'm surprised he didn't use that line. But my chest isn't much different from yours. That's not true. Mine are chiseled pectorals. Yours are small, beautiful breasts. They're totally different. If you don't believe me, why don't you try touching them? Sure, okay, you're right. They're completely different. Yours are kind of hard. Whoa! These pectorals belong to you, so you're free to touch them whenever you like. Mine belong to you, but keep in mind the time and place when you touch them. How about now? But we're having an important conversation right now, aren't we? Right. Back to what I want to talk about. Let's communicate with each other openly. When we need something, or when we're dissatisfied with something, okay? That will keep our married life peaceful. Yeah, I agree. And on that note, is there anything you want to tell me now? Just don't suddenly disappear on me, okay? Rudius realized, yes, kind of like before. I understand. I won't suddenly disappear. Unless a displacement incident happens. He knew how painful it was for someone you cared about to suddenly disappear. Addis. That night, Rudius went down to the basement. The hidden door was restored and well camouflaged. Inside was an altar constructed of lustrous black stone that his idol was enshrined in. There he offered a prayer to his god in this new holy land. He upgraded he upgraded his shrine. Oh. Rudius, you're special. Absolutely. I was wondering what he had the guy make. I was stuck on that note of, well, it was something like, I don't criticize anybody. I'm a man of Millis faith, but I don't criticize anybody else's what they want. He just does whatever the client wants. And it kind of made my mind go immediately to, like, yes, inappropriate things. I just kind of assumed it was going to be like some, I don't know, BDSM room or something like that. Just like 50 Shades of Grey room or something. Like, Rudy wants this, like, kinky room that has all this crazy stuff to try out different fetishes with Sylphie. I'm like, holy crap, this is going to go real dark real quick. All the crazy stuff that he wants to do with Sylphie. But no, it's just for his holy relic. He made an entire chamber just for it, because it's that important. I think it always surprised me how serious Rudius is about his relic. He just never... Like, I fully understand why the relic's important. Don't get me wrong. I know I have to kind of re-explain things. Like, we've gone so long in the Mushoku Mondays that it's getting to the point now where some people pop up out of nowhere and they don't have any context as to what I've been talking about for the longest time. I ran into a comment the other day that was upset because I made little of the ED situation in the last Mushoku Monday. I'm like, that was one joke amongst 3 volumes, 12 videos of me talking in great detail about the ED situation. If I was making light of it, I would have dropped this series a long time ago because it spent 3 volumes talking about his depression with his ED. So sometimes I feel like I have to kind of... So if you guys ever hear me restate things, it's typically because I'm trying to make sure people know what I'm talking about. I understand how important the Holy Relic is to him. I love Roxy, and I would probably do the same thing. My point is more in the idea that no matter how much growth we have seen in Rudius, no matter how much he's maturing, as I've stated several times before, this story is about a man-child who cryogenically froze himself inside of his room in his previous life, never grew up, now going to another world, and sort of growing up. Finally having responsibilities, learning about having a house, taking care of the house, bringing a wife into that house, what it means to get married, the responsibilities, how complicated marriage is, learning about how to love somebody, how to trust somebody, such and such and such. And yet, despite all that growth we've seen in him, he still has this relic that he is so devoted to. He takes it very seriously. I mean, we noted that with the whole situation with Lenny and Priscilla. He flipped out. And again, like we noted, what was pointed out to me, and it reminded me, and then we talked about it a little bit, he literally did to somebody else what was done to him in his previous life that caused him to be a shut-in. Yes, stripping somebody down while they're tied up. It didn't even dawn on him what he was doing there. It was all because they did something terrible to this image of Roxy. He literally worships her. It's not a joke to him, honestly. I've never really felt like it's ever been a joke to him. It felt like a joke early on. I took her pantsu. I hope she doesn't get mad. Hope she doesn't discover that I have her pantsu. Oh crap. Lilia found out I had this pantsu. It was all about these pantsu. And it felt very juvenile at that point. What's sort of interesting, and again, it's me, I'm hoping I'm reading into this properly and it's not overreading it, because I really trust Refugin. Early on, when he was first moved to this world, he was a dork. He was immature. He was a man-child, like I said. And so him getting the underwear was like, yes, I have these underwear. I got a pair of Rapunzel. And it was still, even at that point, important to him because Roxy did so much. And I think as he went out, got more comfortable with the world, it remained with him. It became the symbol for him. And it's like he became more and more serious about it. It went from something that was juvenile, pantsu, to something that was a relic. This important thing, especially becoming so much more the moment Edis left him, and it became the only thing he can cling on to. That's where I think, and I believe so. I don't think it really kind of hit on it before then. The moment Edis left him, it went from a comfort cloth and a perverted thing to this is the thing that got me through so much. Volume 7, Volume 8 for the web novelist, was the point in which that Pantsu, this pervy desire, I love her so much, became, I respect her so much, she saved me from a bad place, it became a religion at that point. Because, honestly, that was the point in which he made an altar. He started praying to it, and it became something so much more. It became Rudius' religion. And it's kind of interesting that he never discarded that, despite the fact that now he has purpose. Now he's been cured, and now he's in love. And he's getting married. And he even takes something, a piece of a blood-stained bed sheet, and put it in there. So he's still worshiping Roxy. Roxy is still his goddess. The thing that he worships. He's not worshiping a bedsheet now. He's not worshiping Sylphie. It's almost like an offering, putting it in there. I've gone through something. I'm putting it in here. Again, it's crazy to an outsider's perspective. We understand, most readers will understand because we've seen Rudius' journey, but it's still crazy to think that has become an actual religion for him. And it makes me wonder at what point that is going to, and again, it's chat, I'm gonna say chat every time. I wonder what point that's gonna become, either he loses it, he discards it, maybe one day he finally takes Roxy off the pedestal. I'm curious because it seems like it's always such a focus. Every night, pray to it. Chapter 5, Wedding Reception Preparations. A week later, Ariel had given Sylphie 7 days off as a kind gesture. He wanted to take full advantage of it and spend romantic nights together, but that's not how it went. It was custom in this world to invite friends over for a meal, so they had to prepare for it. Not just as a housewarming gift, but something you do when you're getting married and buying a new home. At this point, they went over the list. Rudius was inviting Elise, Zenoba, Julie, Cliff, Linnea, Priscilla, and Bodigatti. He was still contemplating inviting Genius and Soldat. Sylphie was inviting Ariel, Luke, and 2 others. Rudius would love to invite his family, but unfortunately they were far away. He had informed them of his marriage, but who knows how long it was going to take to arrive to them. Again, I'm really not liking this anymore. Every time he brings up the letters to them and nothing coming back, it's like, dude, eventually you gotta see this as a bad sign. But again, this world doesn't have planes. You can't just fly somewhere and check it out. They knew they had a troublesome bunch. Beastmen who hated Ariel, a slave, a demon, royalty. It was a mess. This is one of those moments where you realize everybody around them coming together doesn't sound good. While Sylphie thought that Ariel wouldn't stir up a situation, Rudius felt it was best to separate the troublemakers. He didn't want to sour Ariel's mood because of something at his house. Again, he's kind of putting Ariel up on this pedestal because he knows that Sylphie really, really respects and cares for Ariel, and Ariel's technically her boss. But Ariel really does want to meet the others, considering some of your friends will hold important positions in the future. I hate this stuff so much. Every time this stuff happens, I get angry. This stuff triggers Andrew. By the way, Rudius, Ariel really wants to meet your friends because she wants to invite all of them to the war that we're doing. I'm stopping. While Rudius joked in his mind about Ariel seeking sexy men at the wedding reception, he knew she probably wanted to make connections. In the end, she'd be invited knowing that she's responsible for managing herself. The next problem was seating of importance. They had a crowd of royalty, technically. Yes, we technically have like you have like beast folk that are technically princesses. You have the Demon King Bodigatti. You have Ariel, who is, trying to get the throne. Zenoba is a exiled prince, but still prince. But Bodigatti was a reigning Demon King, so he went first. Then they figured Ariel, then Zenoba, and then Lenny and Priscilla. He thought it might be insulting to Cliff being at the end, but no, Rudius figured that he was taught etiquette, so he'd probably be fine. Plus, Elise would be with him, so she would keep him in check. I just realized at some point, I'm like, it's so funny that whenever they talk about Cliff, Elise is keeping him in check. Knowing that, yes, Cliff is hot-headed. He's a genius, he's full of himself, and he gets a little worked up easy. He's very childish. He gets insulted very easily. And Elise is really good at kind of, curving conversation and pivoting direction of conversation to kind of chill people out. And it's so funny that somebody that Rudius often seen as being this kind of girl that just wants to constantly get in bed with people, he always thinks of Elise keeping Cliff in check, which is kind of funny. Then there was Julie and Luke. They didn't want to separate them from Zenoba and Ariel. It would be really bad if Ariel was assassinated at his party, and Julie was still a child, and she wasn't fluent in other languages. I love now knowing what happens in Chapter 6. Freaking Julie just runs off with Bodigatti. Then, Sylphie realized they were forgetting someone. No, not Goliath. Goliath wasn't getting invited. Nanahoshi. But Rudius wasn't sure if she'd really come. Again, she's kind of a shut-in. At some point, Rudius started kind of having fears that no one would show up. But Sylphie quickly alleviated each and every one of them. As conversation turned to Cliff, who specifically asked to be invited, Sylphie murmured, "Personally,
I'd like for Ellen and Elise to come. Rudius wondered why. He never seen them talk. This is where I was going, I got it. I called it. I called it. We'll get into that later. There's a little something I like to ask her. It's not really a big deal or anything, though. Rudius was honestly at this point wondering if maybe she wanted to ask if they ever slept together. No, Rudius. As they went to get groceries, Sylphie wanted for Rudius to get a new outfit. She personally liked his robes. Again, she mentioned earlier that makes him feel rugged and dangerous. She knew that other people paid attention to those kind of things. He never really put much thought into his wardrobe, but he did realize that it would call question to Sylphie's character if he were wearing raggy stuff. Sure, he was attached to it. I mean, it was the first thing that he bought in the Demon Continent, but it was tacky looking. The only other thing that he had was his fur vest. I totally forgot it. He still has the fur vest. Why? Why does he still have this thing? It's like he's never mentioned that he has some sort of bond to it. I mean, yes, Geese was a cool dude, but still, it's just a fur vest. But yes, he knew that it didn't really look good on a magician. But then why do you still have it? It was too shabby to wear around Sylphie, and it made him look like a bandit. Poor Geese. At the shop, Sylphie put on her glasses and assumed the Fitz persona. Yes, Ariel was a frequent here, disguised as Fitz, so she was a regular. It seemed as if the shop, despite it being for royalty, had a lot of mage robes, which made sense because nobility coming to the city became magicians. Being favored to earth and water magic, he was offered a robe made from rainforest lizard hide from the designer Foglin, a designer for the Renoa's Royal Court Magicians. Now, this is funny because Rudius pondered about how the rainforest lizards didn't have a particularly high resistance to water. They froze easily when you used water magic on them. I like the fact that his knowledge in his adventuring days is actually coming to a benefit when he's actually buying stuff. He's like, wait, I'm not sure if that hide would be good because those things just like froze. Then he was offered a robe made from a hide of a great earthworm of the Begaret continent. It was designed by a promising newcomer, Flone, or Flown, probably Flown. In the end, he didn't dislike the camouflage the earthworm robe gave, but by design, he preferred a winter camouflage. He then asked Sylphie, Fitz. He actually said Fitz. What does Master Fitz think? I can use it again. What does Master Fitz? I can use it again. She ended up pulling out one that looked like his old one, but darker shade of gray, charcoal black specifically. It had pockets, black buttons to fasten up the back of the sleeves, and a cord in the place of a belt. It was made of hide of a lucky rat from the Demon Continent. Their coats had a strong resistance to poison and acids. The designer was Khazra. Reese had met a lucky rat before in a warehouse in the Demon Continent. It was much bigger than the muckrats, and the muckrats were all kind of surrounding it, and he was flabbergasted by it, but Rizard and Edis just made quick work of it. I always actually liked the gray robes that he's always had, so to him to get like a kind of upgraded version of it's pretty cool. And again, if I remember correctly, the gray robes were technically like built for resisting physical attacks. It doesn't really say it, but it's specifying that the hide itself is resistant to those acids and poisons. So at least they'll give him a resistance to that as well, even though he does know detoxification. At this point, Rhea speaks up. Well, they do say names represent nature. If lucky is the name, maybe it'll bring me good luck. I guess we'll go with this. The manager spoke up. Names represent nature? Pardon my manners, but might I ask what your name is? Oh, yes, my name is Rudius Greyrat. Oh my, you're a member of the Greyrat family? Forgive my rudeness, Master Luke is a treasured patron of this establishment, so I'll give you a discount on your purchase this time. I would assume like the fact that Fitz is there, Fitz works for Ariel, they're already getting a discount? Why is it the fact that Luke goes there all the time? I guess Luke is giving them so much more money because he mentioned the fact that he keeps bringing women there. Sylphie like speaks up and says, excuse me, does Luke visit here often? He's like, what are you talking about, Fitz? He comes here with you all the time. Oh, no, I mean when I'm not here. He's like, yeah, he brings women all the time. So I guess like how much Luke is bringing in girls to buy outfits is much more important to him than the name of Ariel. I don't know. But yes, it seemed like this guy was obviously currying favor with Luke. As they gathered groceries, Sylphie mentioned learning cooking from her mom and Lilia. The two of them had a back and forth about being ideal husband and wife for each other, and Rudius asked specifically of Sylphie to point out any flaws that he may have. To which, yes,
she pointed one out. She wanted him to be more assertive, that he was too submissive sometimes. I thought that was kind of a really good point that she makes, which is technically what he's always gone by. Like he points out here, he wondered what would happen if his actions soured the mood of some god passing by. Again, his assertiveness there got him killed. He just went, oh, hey, dude, by the way, do you know anything about this? He literally should have kept quiet. He spoke out and stopped the dragon god from just walking. He could have saved himself a lot of suffering, but he spoke up. And so it's no wonder why he's not assertive. His whole mindset has been to keep your mouth shut in fear of making the wrong person mad and then getting yourself killed. That's just how this world is. People of this world will beat you to death by the crime of just looking at them funny. But even still, despite all of that, once again, because Sylphie says this is something that she wants, he says, look, I want to be the married man with confidence for his wife. Starting today, I'm going to be a smug asshole. So he says, Sylphie, make sure to show how much you love me. Don't slack off. That's not quite what I mean, but sure, I'll do my best. She clenched her fist. She was so cute. He wanted to smooch her, but she didn't like public affection. After this, they decided on some plates. They figured Rudius could make them on his own. And then they wanted furnishing for the guest room. The house was really draining Rudius' funds, but it was going to good use. He was glad he didn't waste money on magical implements like he wanted to. I wanted you to so I could see more about them. Damn it. Still, he may need to make some extra money hunting down monsters. No, that was out of the question. He couldn't go out there and get himself killed doing a quest. Suddenly, he understood why Paul returned to his position as a knight in order to get a steady paycheck. He's starting, again, this kind of was those realization of the life of a married person. You can no longer be reckless with your life. You now have somebody that you care about that cares for your safety. You can't just be running off and putting yourself in major danger. And Paul did that. This is one moments of him realizing that Paul did a good decision. Sylphie tried to reassure Rudius that she had money coming in from work, but even still, Rudius considered partying with Soldat. However, with him disappearing for days at a time, it wasn't ideal. He had to get a steady job. He was going to have to actually get a job. Oh wait, is the title no longer going to be Jobless Reincarnation? I guess technically he's been getting jobs, just not like a normal job, not adventuring, not tutoring a crazy redheaded girl. That was technically a regular job. Marriage, sure, was complicated. That night, Sylphie joined Rudius in the bath. While it was all to teach her, he just wanted some quality bath time together. He guided her through the process of disclothing, doing pre-cleaning, and washing her hair. The whole time getting ahead of himself and wanting to sneak grabs. He was the worst teacher ever. But we all know we'd be doing the same thing. This kind of reminds me when we first met. He recalled saving her and washing her down then. Odd how that boy he had met back then is now his wife. Life sure took you to some unexpected places. He realized that unlike his past life, where he found baths a nuisance, he now enjoyed the sensation. Living in a snowbound country had taught him how precious baths were. Later, he got into the bath with Sylphie. She spun around and sat on his lap. Taking note of her body, he remembered a long time ago when he thought Sylphie would someday become a beautiful man. I think you recall that every 2 chapters, dude. Sometimes I really don't like... There's the one thing I would criticize Refugien, and I think it's because that whole chapter-by-chapter release they do in Japan. So you have these long time periods between each chapter, so he has to rebind things. It's like, how many times does he have to keep recalling the same thing, or we keep re-mentioning the same thing? But yes, instead, she had grown to be an adorable and beautiful woman who surpassed his every expectation. While she got angry when he touched her in public, here, she let her guard down. After she giggled with a toothy grin, she told him she loved him. While yes, currently, he was supposed to be teaching her etiquette and bathing, that would have to wait. He quickly picked her up in a princess style and rushed her up to the second floor bedroom. And that is chapter 5. I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to stop with chapter 5. Unfortunately, I did want to get chapter 6 because I have completed it, and it is just a can of worms. It's got some really fantastic character moments. It has one big, massive reveal that I cried. I literally started crying, and I want to get into it, but I think 6 and 7 kind of flow into each other, so I think that'll work out great, but I want to leave it there. Like I mentioned before, not my favorite chapters. 1 through 5 was not my favorite chapters. And no, it's not because of Sylphie. I know people were probably is saying that in the chat already. It's not because of Sylphie. Honestly, Sylphie was like only in like quarter of 1 and significantly in 5. Like the rest of it was not even involving Sylphie. It's just kind of one of those, like I said before, I think what makes 1 through 5 important, and yes, technically 6 and I'm possibly into 7, I haven't read much of 7, is it's really kind of showing Rudius getting a normal life. And that's good. I'm not saying that 1 through 5 is useless. I think 1 through 5 is Rudius making bonds with people like Cliff, Zenoba, establishing a connection somewhat to Ariel, but more so it's him finally having a settled down family life of normality. And I think that's going to be, again, my assumption is that that's going to lead eventually to a, you got too comfortable, it's time to move again. Whether that's Ariel goes on the move, Edis shows back up and says we're going off to kill the Orsted, whether it's he gets a letter from Paul, whether it's something else comes up that says you got too comfortable. Maybe it's the man god pops up and says, hey, Rudius, I need you to do stuff. You can't just stay here. I need you to go to Begret, because if you don't go there, you will greatly regret it. Something like that. Something is going to shake it up, and I'm waiting for that. And like I said, I think this is to build up to make that more impactful when that happens, because that's my assumption. Oh, but who knows? Maybe the maybe the remaining, I don't know, what is it, 17 volumes is nothing but life in this kingdom. Anyways, but that's 1 through 5 of volume 10. I'm sorry I couldn't do 6, because I really did want to knock out half of book, because that'd been really great for Mushoku Monday. But again, I'm just getting way too much memory ate up here. I can edit more now than I used to be able to, but it still takes a lot of time. Despite the fact that I can do more now, I still can't. So pace it. Don't rush. That's what everybody says. Pace it, don't rush, enjoy it. And that's what I'm going to do. And 6 was amazing, and I really badly want to talk about it. But we'll get to it next week. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoy this Mushoku Mondays. As always, if you have not already, make sure that like button down below. I greatly appreciate you guys' support. Thanks to everybody that drops by for the premiere. As always, greatly appreciate it. Thanks so much for your guys' patience. Additionally, if you're new to the channel, make sure that subscribe button so you get all my content. I do news, reviews, first impressions, top list. If it's anime, it's pretty much here. Additionally, if you like this content and you're able to, I greatly appreciate if you consider supporting on Patreon, our tips link, super thanks, and the membership button down below. It's your guys' support that makes this continue on, and I greatly appreciate it. And with all that said, until the next Mushoku Mondays, y'all take care. But she wouldn't say it explicitly. When he came in, Ariel sat in expensive hair. When he came, and many may jump to their own conclusions once they have learned, and many may jump into. Elise is constantly just waiting for the moment to leap onto her. Even though the stake was tearing at his clothes, he wouldn't step away. An automaton, as well as some basic furnishings pushed in. Despite Ryu's concern that, yes, he was a single-minded... Despite Ryu's concern that he had this single-minded fixation... Machinery and metal... My gosh. Ryus noted that it has been some time since they announced. Ryus noted that he was offered a robe from the Rainforest Lizard Hide. Life sure took you to some unexpected. Living in a snowbound, whether that be Ariel goes on the moon, whether that's because Ariel goes on the move,